Okay, I think we're live, and what we'll do is we'll wait until we get some viewers logged in, and then I'll make sure it's streaming on YouTube. And for those
Okay.
of you who are watching the recording, thank you for logging in. This is Performance and Assessment in the Virtual Classroom with Raquel Nedden, and we have a guest speaker tonight. We should get started shortly, so now's a good time to do a sound check, make sure that your speakers are adjusted, the volume is at a comfortable level, and we'll just wait a few minutes. And Michelle, I'm going to turn my webcam off for just a minute, and while we wait for our viewers to log in, okay?
We'll be outside.
Okay, and it looks like we're ready to start. Okay, let's go ahead and begin. Welcome everyone. This is Performance and Assessment in the Virtual Classroom. This is our first live session for this go around of the course, so thank you all for coming. We're going to do a short overview of the course. I'll give you a little tour and let you know what to do this week, and then we have a special guest speaker tonight, one of my friends and colleagues from Washington State who's going to share her knowledge on virtual education. Okay, so the first thing I'd like you to do is I'm going to do a screen sharing program, and I'm going to take you around the course. And just to let you know, there's a little bit of a lag time with our YouTube streaming. So if it takes a few seconds to catch up, just know that it's coming. So if I'm talking about something and it doesn't quite match what you're seeing, just know that the lag time is probably about 10 seconds. That's what we've been experiencing. Okay, so this is the homepage, landing page of our course. And what I'll do is I'll post the announcements at least once a week, every Monday for sure. But if there's something coming up like a Google Hangout like we're doing tonight, or if there's an issue with the course, a technical problem, I'll try to address it either in the announcements or by email. The course syllabus is on this tab here, so you'll be able to see. And we have one error, I think, in the course, and the course was copied over from another section, so one of our dates was wrong on our peer assessment. But just to let you know, the peer assessment will open up on June 1st. If you click on the map, you'll see where all of your wonderful colleagues are located. This is absolutely incredible. If you have not added to the map, make sure you do that. And the way you do that is you're going to click on the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner, and you can put your name. You don't have to share any personal information, so only share as much as you like. You can put a city, a state, or even a country. That's totally fine. You can even pick the marker color that you'd like here, and then you can preview it and close it, and you'll see a marker pop up wherever you are in the world. So it's very interesting to see your colleagues and where they're from. And I would recommend that you put maybe a little bit about yourself, or you can put where you teach. So I've put mine here. Mine's in Irvine, California, and I just put a little bit about myself there. So this is a wonderful tool to use. And I just want to let you know, it's called ZMaps. This is an app that I've used in my virtual classes, and you can create a free account and you can load a map in your virtual course to see where all of your students are from as well. Okay, so there's an overview of our class. The actual course content is contained here in the video lectures, and each week you're going to have between 4 and 6 small lectures, and it has the time on here. So if you don't have time to sit down for an hour, you can say, all right, I'll watch lesson 1 or lesson 2. You can watch them one at a time. That's totally fine. I've also included a math review this week, although you really won't need it until week 3 when we do our peer assessment. Just some tips on calculating weights and percents for when we analyze our gradebook assignment in week 3. All right, so those are all our video lectures. Resources are articles and interesting facts that I've added for you to view at your leisure. It's not required reading. It's just things that I've come across that I thought might be interesting for this class. Okay. Your quizzes are under this tab, and you have multiple attempts on the quiz, so don't worry if you get one wrong, just take it again. It's not a problem at all. The due dates are in the course here, but if you notice, they're all due at the end of the course. So I want to say you have plenty of time, but my advice is just to get it done early so we don't run into any situations of crunch time. So they're all due at the end of the course, but like I said, you can get them all done now if you want. You can go as fast or as slow as you want in the course. The peer assessment is really the only assignment that's graded. This one you won't see live until June 1st, and I'll tell you a little bit about it in our live session next week. I promise it'll be easy, and I'll give you tips on how to complete it. You'll complete it yourself, and then you'll evaluate 3 peers, okay? Since we have such a large number in the course, this is a great solution for grading so many assignments. So you'll be assessing your peers, and I have a rubric and everything, so don't worry about that. The discussion forums you've probably already discovered. You're going to have one discussion every week, which is going to be under this tab that says weekly discussions. And you can also post an introduction. I also have international forums, and you can also open up a special forum. So let's say you wanted to know what's the best LMS system out there. Open up a forum and let your peers respond. Or what kind of programs are you using to make your digital content? Let's get a forum up there and you can share with your peers. All right, so let's go ahead and get to our guest speaker this evening. Our guest speaker for this evening is Michelle Newkirk Smith. I've known Michelle for 10 years. She is an administrator at a virtual school. She's both the department chair for her school and at the national level for Insight Schools of Washington. She's lived all over the world in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, Rota, Spain, and Alabama, and I think I'm missing some too, San Diego for sure. She's working on her PhD in Global and Comparative Education at Walden University, and she's been the science chair, science curriculum developer, and was a National Teacher of the Year in 2006. So please help me welcome Michelle Newkirk Smith.
Hi, Raquel. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. I am really excited to be here. And what I want to do is start out with a day in the life of a teacher, just to give you an overview of what my job is like. And it's very different. When Raquel and I started off at Insight 10 years ago, we basically just opened up our classrooms and just waited for the students to arrive. And that didn't work as well. And then we spent a lot of time grading. I remember spending hours and hours and hours just grading papers. Luckily, that's not what we do. One of the advantages of teaching online is that we spend more time actually working with the students, more with direct instructions than I ever do grading a paper. To break down my typical week, I would say that I spend about 3 to 5 hours prepping for my direct instruction, and I spend about the same amount of time, 3 to 5 hours, actually given that direct instruction. That depends on the number of preps I have. Our requirement is 1 hour per day. I'm sorry, 1 hour per course per week, but I like to be more available. And then I have 12 to 15 hours of office hour, and that's just open sessions where all of my students can come and visit with me, work with me, get some help on an assignment. And then we also have a group of students, our advisory students, and these are the students that I work very, very closely with. I work one-on-one with them every week. I give them, and sometimes, and I know everything about some of my students. I know their siblings, I know their dog names, I know their dreams, where they want to go, what they want to be, their GPA. I know everything, but sometimes I have never ever seen a picture of them. I got one young man that I know so well. We text, we talk. He hangs out with me 3 to 4 hours every week. I have never seen a picture of him. I've asked him and he chooses not to share. I've offered to drive 3 hours to meet him and he has turned me down. So kind of a unique situation working online. So I spend 3 to 6 hours working with my advisor students in an online environment or working on the phone calls. I only spend about probably 2 to 3 hours grading a week, maybe a little bit more if I'm doing grading on a lab. But for the most part, most of the assignments are auto graded. I just go in there and do a check to see reports to see what questions students are missing. I spend about 3 to 5 hours on general training, research, just keeping up with the topics. 3 to 5 hours also responding to emails and emails, and then about an hour to two meeting with students, meeting with special ed providers in an IEP setting. So that's my typical week. And as you can kind of see, I spend most of my time working with students one on one. And that's, I think, the biggest advantage of online is that I really get a chance to work with my students and I really get to know them one on one as opposed to trying to reach 40 students in 50 minutes and really get to know them. So, if I were to look at the benefits and the challenges of teaching virtually, as benefits, definitely the flexible work schedule for the students. That I have many students that are they have children of their own. They are faced with health issues. I this year have two professional ballerinas that dance around the world. I've had students that travel the world. Many reasons why they come to Insight School of Washington or look to virtual schooling. They need that flexibility that the traditional brick and mortar schools don't offer. So there's many reasons, and we offer that. And then sometimes it's the class programs. Their local schools don't offer the classes that they need because they're not as challenging, or they're too challenging, or they just need more time to process the information. And the class in the brick and mortar has to move at an average pace. And so some students either get bored or they're not able to keep up. Another advantage is just that one-on-one access to the student, or I'm sorry, to the teacher, where I'm sitting in the room, and if a student comes to me with a forensic science question, they don't understand a concept, instead of raising their hand in a group of 30 to 40 students where they may feel uncomfortable, they can come and talk with me, and they can just say, hey, Michelle, I really don't understand this concept, and we can work through it. We can talk about it, and then actually look at a real life situation. So I think that's a great advantage. Another is that all of our sessions, our direct instruction sessions, are recorded. So a student that's not able to meet with me during that individual or when I do my direct instructions can go back and watch the recordings. Or how many times in class have you gone back and go, I don't remember exactly what the teacher said? Now my students that can actually go back, hit rewind as many times as they need to get exactly the wording or that exact concept, try to understand with that recording. Another advantage, it is so easy to do and track differentiated assignments. If I have a student that comes to me and wants something different, wants something more challenging, it's very easy to alter that assignment, keep track of it within the virtual platform, as opposed to in a brick and mortar where you're trying to remember what you assigned, because everything is digitally captured and there it's very, very easy to track. Another thing is we're very data driven. And I alluded to that earlier, where when my students take a quiz, I have the ability to go in there and look at all of the quizzes they've taken and look and see what is the average grade on each quiz, on each exam. I also have the option to drill down even further and see what question is everybody missing. Is it a poorly written question? If so, I can go in and change the question. Or is it maybe a concept that I didn't cover well enough, or maybe the examples I used weren't the best examples? So I can go back and I can change the way I teach that next time, or the next lesson, I can just go back and readdress that issue. So all of what I've kind of talked about is based on that the brain-based learning is making students feel comfortable teaching to their level at their pace and making sure that they know that someone truly understands them and cares about them and is there to support them, not just to move them through. So that's all the benefits. There are truly many, many benefits to teaching online. The challenges are just as important. So some of the challenges is reaching all students for quality conversations. It's very easy for some students to hide. They log in occasionally, they don't log in often enough to create to do quality work. And so trying to track them down, they're not in my classroom. So I have to convince them to pick up the phone to attend my classroom. So that's all the benefits. There are truly many. And so I have to be very, very, very friendly, very supportive, and never approach them as, you know, with negative consequences. Everything is positive, positive reinforcement in the classroom. Motivating students to stay on track. Again, it's very easy for students to not log in for a couple of days. And so my job is to keep them motivated, to send out those weekly letters, to call them when they don't log in on a regular basis, and just make it as fun and as interactive as possible. And another disadvantage is sometimes there's less practice on skills, especially science, math, foreign languages. There are certain skills that you get better by practicing. And because of the nature of virtual education, when I was in my brick and mortar teaching science, we would we would do a lot of arts and crafts to practice general concepts in biology and genetics. And we really don't have the ability to do that, or we just don't do it in the virtual classroom. So I think that's one thing that's lost in an area that I think I need to work on in the future. And I think another thing is students can be less connected to school and classmates. It's pretty much up to them to be as connected or as disconnected as they want. I'm going back to my example of that young man that has been in my advisory for 4 years. He connects with me, but he wants to control the amount that he connects, the amount of information he shares, because that's his comfort level. Sometimes I will try to get some information from him, and he will quickly just, you know, put up a wall. And so I no longer try to pry. I accept with the information that he gives me, and I cherish all of that. So the student has the ability to be as connected or as disconnected as they want to get out of school what they need. There are plenty of students that are very, very connected to their classmates and reach out and connect with them via Facebook. And there's some that just want to go to school, earn the credit because they have so many other things going on in their life. So virtual school has that ability. Because this class deals a great deal with assessment, I just want to touch on how do we handle academic integrity in the virtual world. We have Turnitin.com for many of our assignments that I'm sure most of you are familiar, that will check all assignments for plagiarism. Not 100% accurate, but it definitely will give us an idea if that paper is copied from another source or not. The biggest deterrent is really knowing that student. So if I have a student that's going to be writing a lab report, I usually will talk with them ahead of time so that I know that they understand that information. I have looked at many of their samples of their writing style, so I know what type of language they use. I know what they understand and don't. So before they even submit that assignment, I really have a good idea of what they know and don't know. And so that's a big advantage. Another technique is using discussion questions. And again, knowing the student, talking about the discussion questions in class when we're synchronous, and then having the students go and post directly onto our boards while we're still in a synchronous Class Connect is really, really helpful. The biggest thing is just authentic opportunities to demonstrate learning as it relates to them. If you make it relatable, give them the opportunity to demonstrate that knowledge in a way that has meaning to them, they're going to do that. They're going to really show you what they know and apply it and really get into the material if you give them the opportunity to do that. So it really truly goes back to the advantages of that online education is getting to know your students, getting to work with them one-on-one and support them and understand what type of support they really need. A topic that is near and dear to our heart here in the state of Washington is the amount of state testing that is going on right now. As a mother of two boys that are in high school, and I see the amount of time that they're losing. Recently, there was a study, and it showed that 11th graders are required to take the Smarter Balance test. It's not a graduation requirement for them, but they must give up a couple of their days of, of schoolwork to take the test. Plus, the teacher has to give up an additional 10 days to prep the students for the test. So roughly 15 days are given up just to prep for a test that is no longer a graduation requirement. A major concern of mine for the Smarter Balance, at least in the state of Washington, is it is a computer-based test. And so we have students now taking computer-based tests for the very, very first time in their life, and it counts. And that's really scary. That really concerns me, especially when we have third graders and fifth graders and seventh graders taking these Smarter Balance tests on computer when they're not used to it. And it's not going as smoothly as we hoped. And so some of the issues that we're having at the virtual school level, so we deal with all of the same things, the brick and mortar, but we have the problems of scheduling students at multiple locations and multiple dates. Because the test is given on the computer, we have mobile computer sites that travel around the sites and so around the state. So the tests are given different days. So we need to coordinate all of our students to show up at a certain location at a certain date that is close to them. We need to make sure that we have tech coverage. We need to have teacher coverage. We need to make sure that we have locations that are student friendly and that we're able to support them. And the disadvantage in my mind is that we're having some of these young students sit for 4 to 6 hours to take the test. And so it's a big concern. And so if we can come up with a solution, I challenge all of my brilliant cohorts out there to come up with a solution to some of these problems that we're experiencing. I would love to hear from you. So Raquel, I think I'm missing some of the questions that are coming across. If you can help me with some of those.
Yes, so I think our Q&A is not functioning. So I encourage students to go to the Google page, Performance and Assessment in the Virtual Classroom. That's where you first logged in. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to type your questions there and I will send them to Michelle. So our first question is from Simchi Pharma, and he asks, not having valid measures of assessment can lead to students having issues with what problems, Michelle? So he would like to know what problems can arise from not having valid measures of assessment. Okay, and Michelle, are you able to hear us? Okay, let's see. There we go. We lost Michelle for a little bit. Let's see if we can Let's see. Looks like you're muted for some reason. Let's try to get you unmuted. And do you have a mute button, Michelle, on your end? Okay. Okay, let's see if we can help Michelle. And hold on one second. Okay, Michelle, are you able to hear us? Michelle, are you able to hear us? Okay. And let's see. Okay. Okay, on your picture. No? Okay, so let's see what happened. And we'll try to unmute Michelle here. Okay, it's kind of strange how she's muted there. I hope we don't lose her. Okay, so can we do this? Let me. Okay, so the first question was from Sinchi, and let's see if we can have Michelle answer that. And meanwhile, I will try to unmute her, which I don't know why it's not doing that. Usually it has an mute button right away. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to have Michelle do is I'm going to have her log out and come back in again. She'll be back. She'll be back in a second. Okay, so actually, Simchi, I can speak to the first one. So not having a valid measure of assessment, really what you're doing is you're giving students random tests based on material that they haven't covered. So it's almost like if I were going to take an accounting test, I would expect the material to be on accounting practices. But instead, I show up and it's a biology test. Okay, so it's not aligned. And that's an extreme example, but it happens in every classroom across the United States, unless the teacher is very diligent about aligning their assessments to the actual content. And what I used to have my teachers do is start backwards. I used to have them show me your assessment. Now tell me how you're going to teach it. It all comes back to where are we going? How are we going to get there? And how do we know when we got there? We have to know. So if you start kind of working backwards and start with the assessment, then you can look back and see, well, how am I going to get there? I know I want to get here, but what am I going to do to teach it? And so many teachers teach things, but their assessments are not 100% aligned to the material, and that's where they run into a lot of issues. Okay, we have another question from Monica Benito. How are open-ended questions assessed? So Monica, in the online world, open-ended questions are usually scored by hand by the teacher. So like I work in the Canvas program a lot, the Canvas LMS, which by the way I love. And the students have to enter their work either into a text box or they can upload a document. Either way, the teacher has to hand score it. However, there's something really exciting coming down with the LMS systems where the teacher can actually enter keywords that they're looking for in an assignment, and the computer will pick up on that and they'll scan the student's work and they'll recommend a grade. However, I've seen demos of it and it's not perfect by any means, but at least it's a start. Canvas has a wonderful program that allows teacher-graded assignments such as open-ended questions, allows you to develop rubrics inside of the LMS system, and the teacher literally just has to click on the material, on the rubric. So let's say it was a 1 to 5 rubric, 1 being lowest, 5 being highest. The teacher would read the essay, grade the item, and literally they would just have to click a 5 or a 4, and they could define their criteria right inside the LMS system. So you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want. So if you're grading an essay, you can look for grammar, you can look for spelling, you can look for word structure, you can look for whatever you want and add those criteria, and then you can click on the rubric as you need to. So it's a wonderful way to grade within an LMS system. The old way was that the teacher had to download every assignment, type comments in, and then send it back to the student. It was very tedious. Multiply that by 200, and that's a lot of work. Okay, so we have another question from Heather. The Turnitin program was mentioned as a tool for checking original authorship of submitted papers and essays. Okay, 2 questions. Have you seen a similar authorship tool for PowerPoint videos, projects created by the students? Oh, okay, so it only accepts, I believe it only accepts Word documents. I don't know if you can cut and paste a text. The problem with PowerPoints is that everything is in chunks. So you'd have to copy and paste every single thing. That would be a problem. What I've done before, though, with assignments that weren't accepted in Turnitin is I've actually cut and paste the students' work into Google, and it's pretty accurate. You can have a website come up and you can see if they copied and pasted it directly from a website if you suspect that the authorship is in question. Okay, and the second thing is, have you seen students try to get around the Turnitin filters? Yes, I have, by manipulating their papers or their essays. Yes, I have seen that. The students catch on to where it's a certain percentage that gets flagged, especially the older students. I don't think the younger students so much. And usually they're not the ones that have a tendency to copy and paste. But the older students, what they catch on to is that their teacher is scanning for a certain percentage of work, so 60%, 70% scanned, and they try to keep it below the radar. I've seen that as well. Or what they'll do is they'll copy and paste and they'll do source citing. So technically it's not plagiarized, but the majority of their paper will be copied and pasted. And that's really an instructional issue. So what I would recommend is what I had my teachers do every time they would start a semester, is that they would have to give a lesson on plagiarism, lesson on Turnitin, and then some examples of work that would be flagged for plagiarism. And really it's just another teaching point that we can address with our students. Okay, and another question from Simchi: why virtual public schools are not held accountable? They are. If it's a virtual public school, they are held accountable to the same testing standards. So if they're a virtual charter school, they are. Not if they're a private school. So private schools, some of them do the state testing if they choose. For example, they could do the high school entrance exam, but they don't have to because they're private. Okay, they can issue a diploma, you know, based on their standards as long as they're accredited. Well, even if they're not, they can still issue a diploma, but it's not, you know, it just depends on where that family chooses to send their children to school. But if the virtual school is a public charter school, which in California, if the school is fully virtual, that's considered independent study, and therefore it's really run under a charter school model, they have to do the exact same testing. And this becomes a very big problem because the students may be scattered or over a large geographical area. And the testing coordinators have to arrange for every single student to be able to take that test. And sometimes we have a very short testing window. Now with the new Smarter Balance tests that are computer-based, we have a larger testing window, but it's still a big challenge because the testing coordinators really have their work cut out for them trying to get all those students assessed. But yes, they are held accountable to the same standards. Okay, so let's see if Michelle can get back in. And meanwhile, go ahead and feed your questions through the events page. It's on our Google Plus page for our course. And yep, I see your questions coming through. So I'll try to answer as much as possible. I have a feeling we lost Michelle, that she can't get back in, but that's totally okay. We'll keep going on, and technical problems happen. It's just like when you're in your brick and mortar classrooms and you have this great lesson that you're going to do and things are going very well, and all of a sudden you can't get on the internet to show the teacher, to show the kids the video that you need for the course. It happens all the time, so we work around it. Okay, factors that influence teacher philosophy regarding testing. Um, in my opinion, the biggest factor that influences teachers is their own past experience. So if a student grew up and, if I think back to my history, testing was a very stressful time. We did not have as many standardized tests as there are now, but I just remember testing being a very stressful time. And so when I go to administer tests, I always keep that in mind for my students, that I know that they're under stress. I know that some of these tests are very high stakes, especially their AP tests, their advanced placement tests, and the exit exam. And some of them even need stress management to help them with that. And sometimes I'll do a little lesson on stress management. I'll try to prep them far in advance so they know what to expect, and just make them feel a little bit more comfortable and let them know that it's not the end of the world, that they're more than a test, so that their lives don't depend on that. But it's very difficult. We're having more and more standardized testing throughout the United States, and it does get stressful for the students, absolutely. So I think your own personal experience has a lot to do with the philosophies that you have on testing. But I know, especially here in California, the educational climate for testing, some of the districts agree with the tests and want to get on board and want to do everything correctly. And there's some districts that are maybe have a group that's resistant to it, and they want their children to opt out, and it creates a little bit of tension because there are consequences tied to the testing and to testing scores, even though the test may not count for a student's graduation requirements. So there's a little bit of conflict telling the students that you have to take a test, but then it doesn't count for your grade or graduation requirements, so they don't see the purpose in that. So I think really the testing atmosphere or climate, the administration has to be very positive about it, and they have to be supportive of the students and understand what they're going through, and that attitude will filter throughout the staff, so they're able to make an influence on the kids and make them feel more comfortable. Okay, and I see that Michelle is helping us by chat, so she'll chime in there and answer your questions. Okay, so Heather says, next question regarding information presented in the first week's video. Yes, okay, so in the United States, most of the states have adopted new standards called Common Core standards. Not all the states have adopted this, but this was a federal recommendation, and the states are transitioning to what we call Common Core, and it was fully implemented this past year. So, for example, I was involved in the transition to Common Core for mathematics at my former virtual school. And a lot of the math standards have been pushed up higher. For example, a lot of the standards that we normally found in, let's say, a 9th grade algebra class, they're being taught at the 8th grade level. So a lot of the standards have increased for the students, and they require more depth and less breadth. So not as many topics, but the topics are very focused and deep, allowing the teachers more time to work on each individual topic. So part of the philosophies of Common Core is that the students will engage deeper into mathematical practices, and I'm speaking for math only because that's my content background. I'd like to refer you to a website, and it should be just, if you type in Common Core standards, it should come up. Let me get the exact website. Okay, so you can, yes, go ahead and type in Common Core state standards. And I use the one for mathematics, that's the one I do, but there's basically 8 math practices that are implemented with the Common Core standards. And you can see the differences between the old standards. These require more depth, they require more justification, more open-ended questions. And our virtual classes, our LMSs, have to adapt to that, because I am not a big fan of having lots and lots of multiple choice in a virtual course, although for a MOOC like this, that's one of the only ways to do it when there's so many students in the class. But the LMS has to have different ways to show mastery. So we have to be able to, they have to be able to do a debate, and they have to be able to write out justifications and prove things mathematically. How are you going to do that in the online environment is the question. And the LMSs have responded to that, especially LMSs like Canvas. Okay, and thanks, Michelle, for chiming in. And Michelle Smith is helping us with our questions as well on our Google page. Okay, and then Maya says, the challenges in the virtual classroom, yes, they don't give enough practice. Okay, so what we did at, Michelle and I taught at a virtual school together, and there was a need for math practice. So the students would only log in a couple times a week. They would get their work done, but they were not getting that daily practice that we needed. So one tool that really helped us was the web conferencing. So we used a program called Blackboard Collaborate. There's also programs out there called Illuminate. There's WebEx. I've used WebEx before. There's a lot of web conferencing programs that you can use that have tutoring abilities. So it has a virtual whiteboard. The students are able to log in. They can see me, hear me, just like we're doing now, except I have a whiteboard. I also used a digital pen. I could write equations on the board and do math with the students. And so all the students that were not performing, they needed to come in and get tutoring. So I remember just having my office open. Anytime I was online, I would open up my office and I would let the students know I was available for tutoring between this hour and this hour, and they would come get help. And it's a challenge in virtual learning because they're not in the classrooms every day. So you have to find a way to get around that. So we used to require tutoring if the student was not passing the class. That's a little difficult to do. You have to be careful with that. It just depends on your administration. We used to highly encourage the students to come in if they needed tutoring, and then just working with them one-on-one. But it's very difficult. And it's not necessarily a matter of increasing the workload for them. As far as assignments go, that's not necessarily the solution. It's the interaction with the teacher that they need to take them step by step through the problems, through the assignments. And that's the piece that's missing in virtual education that you have to compensate for, using those live tools like we're doing now with our Google Hangouts. Okay, and then authentic assessment in the classroom. Authentic assessment basically is true assessment based on what you've taught. And from going through lots and lots of virtual courses, one of the biggest problems I find is with alignment. So, okay, you're teaching this, but you're assessing this. It's not completely aligned. Or if you've ever taken a math courses are famous for this. They'll give you two easy examples in the book, and all of a sudden they'll test you on a very difficult problem, and you're going, oh no, this is not what I learned. So that's part of authentic assessment. You may have learned the concept, but you didn't learn the depth that problem is assessing you on. So you have to make sure both the concept and the depth of that concept is the same as what you're assessing. Okay, great questions. All right, let me refresh my page to make sure that we don't have any more questions. Let's see. And yes, we will deliver a recording of this event. I'll put out the link sometime towards the end of the week, or I may put it in my next week's announcement, so you'll be able to see Michelle as well. Because I know for some of you, we have a lot of time zone issues. We have a lot of international students who take this class, so I'm aware of the time zone issues. We are on Pacific Daylight Time, PDT. So you can use a time zone converter if you need to help out with that. But just make sure you get your assignments in way early, because we have had issues with students cutting it too close toward the end of the course and then not being able to get the work in. We have had that as well. Okay, and Edgardo says, Why do you prefer using Google Hangouts, Blackboard, or Skype? We've used Google Hangouts only because it doesn't require any other downloads. We found that it has been the easiest as far as connection goes. I've used Blackboard Collaborate, which I like because it's a password protected program for students. At least it was in my course. I've used Big Blue Button conferences. I've used, I haven't used Skype, but they do have Skype for Business now. I've used Linked. But what we found is that this one has the least amount of downloads and the least amount of compatibility problems. So one thing that you have to be careful of web conferencing programs is your organization may get all excited about choosing a web conference program, and this is the one we're going to go with. But then in reality, as you try to implement it, you realize that, oh, you have to be in Chrome to use it, or you can only use it in Firefox, and oh, it requires this plugin, and it's not working for this student because they're on a Mac. So all these issues start coming. So when you choose a web conferencing program or something like this, Google Hangouts, you really need to work to the lowest common denominator technology-wise. Which one is going to cooperate the most with the most browsers with the least amount of downloads and plugins? Really, that's what you have to look at. So Google Hangouts has been pretty good. We lost Michelle today, which was unexpected, but no worries, she's helping us on the events page. Okay, so essay content. How can we assess an essay's content and relevance to virtual assessment? Okay, so I think your question, if I understand correctly, is how can you assess essays? All right, so when you have an open-ended assignment in a learning management system, those are considered teacher-graded assignments. And some learning management systems are very easy to grade in. You can set up a rubric and define your criteria. So what do you want to assess for in a certain essay? Are you looking for grammar? Are you looking for sentence structure? Are you looking for organization? You can set up your criteria, set up a rating system for the students, and then rank them on that rating system. Now that's the easy LMS programs. The more difficult ones have the students submit a file. The teacher has to open up the file, download it, write comments, upload it again, and send it back to the students. Those are the LMSs that you want to avoid, because those, if you have a full load of students, 180 students or however many you might have at your school for a full-time load, that will get very tedious. So imagine trying to do that 180 times every time that you have an essay that you have to grade. So you want to look for an LMS program that will allow you to grade those open-ended questions fairly easily, or else the workload will get very difficult. Okay, technology questions. How do you insert a live Hangout into YouTube? Okay, so once you have a YouTube channel, you have to get your own YouTube channel, which is free. It's very easy. You just sign up for it. And then what you do is you create a Google's Plus page, and then it's going to say Hangouts is going to be one of the options when you go to your Google Plus page. So I created this page here, which is Performance and Assessment in the Virtual Classroom. And one of the options is to create a new Hangout. So you create a new Hangout, but this one is a live Hangout. It gets streamed via YouTube. Okay, so you can do private ones, or you can do this one, which is accessible by a link. Okay. Application sharing digital pen. For the digital pen, I've had the best luck. This is from Lothar. He's asking about application sharing and digital pens. What kind of hardware did you and the students use, a tablet or a PC? Okay, so I don't usually have my students buy digital pens, and if they're at a public school, we cannot require them to buy equipment. The school has to provide it. So with part of the equipment that they get from the school, that's usually not included. However, teachers who teach math and science should probably have digital pens if they're going to be working online a lot. They're going to have to draw equations. They're going to have to do visuals. So I like the Bamboo Wacom tablets. I've used those in the past, and I've had really good luck with them. I've used them on a daily basis, and they'll last for a couple years, and then finally they'll go bad, or the USB cable will get it just to get a little bit off and it won't connect right. But I've used the Bamboo tablets. They're wonderful. For application sharing, usually most web conference programs have an application sharing. So I know in WebEx you can do a web tour, you can do a screen sharing program that works. I know in Blackboard Collaborate you can do the same thing as well. You can share your screen. So that way, if you're trying to show the students a web page, or you're trying to give them a tour of the course, you can do it through there. Okay, and I'll wait a few more minutes for questions. And then what we'll probably do is we'll probably meet again next week. I'll let you guys know the time. But next time we meet, we're going to go over the peer assessment. Okay, and Michelle has chimed in on the chat. She says, Lother, I use the Bamboo as well for science, and she likes that tablet. So that's the one. And I think it goes under a different brand. It's Wacom, W-A-C-O-M, and Bamboo tablets. I'm not sure if it's the same company, but those are the ones I've used in the past. Yeah. And I can just tell you what I've used in the past, although I can't give an official recommendation for a product. Okay. All right, we'll wait a couple more minutes for questions, and if not, we'll meet again next week, and next week we'll go over the peer assessment, which I promise to make painless for you.
Crafts to practice general concepts in biology.
Okay, if there's no more questions, I guess we'll go ahead and stop the broadcast, and we'll probably meet next Tuesday, but I'll double check my schedule and make sure, and we'll go over the peer assessment, and I'll answer any questions that you have as well. All right, have a great evening or morning if you're on the other side of the world. All right, take care.